Rabbi Mark.
Okay, welcome everyone. So let's start out as we usually do on every Wednesday night. I've been to Romamu, I've been to BJ, I've searched all over for a place to pray. I found the mosh pit and knew that this was it. I am a moshnik and I'm here to stay. And I'm turning gray. I found community that is in tune with me, singing and dancing in our Zoom-a-gog. Everybody! Some contemplation mixed with elation. I am a moshnik and I'm here to stay. And I'm turning gray. A chance to meet you, a chance to greet you, Geneva. A time to deepen what it means to belong. Sandy Cohen, let's have some fun tonight and spread some joy and light. I am a moshnik and I'm here to stay. And we're turning gray. Let's hear Hoff. Even when he's not here, he's here.
It's better every week.
He does, doesn't I think his playing's getting better, for sure. Alrighty, welcome everybody to the Mosh Pit Minyan Oneg Shabbat. And this evening we are going to be unpacking the secrets of the shofar. So without hesitation, yes, Sandy. Extending your shofar. Without hesitation, here's a nice little piece of artwork. And we know that every Shabbos morning we sing about praising God with the shofar. Hallelujah, b'teika shofar. Hallelujah, b'teika shofar. And then all the other instruments are mentioned as well. Now I'm going to skip a couple of pages here. If I can. There we go. I think I need to make that active. There we go. I'm going to skip the places where I had prepared, but I can send this to you if you want, of a proof text where shofar is mentioned. Now, shofar is not always called shofar, like in Tekiah shofar. Sometimes it's called teruah. Right? That we know that as teruah. But here are some reasons for shofar other than the textual citations that are readily available, or I can send them to you if you like. Just as with kings at the start of their reign, so these are reasons given by Saadia Gaon, who lived in the 9th and 10th century. Just as with kings at the start of their reign, trumpets and horns are blown in their presence to make it known and to let it be heard in every place. Thus it is when we designate the Creator as King on this day, as David said, with trumpets and sounds of the horn, shout ye before the King, the Lord. And please forgive me for using gendered language here, but this is his language and I didn't want to change Saadia Gaon's language. With this first reasoning, we can also understand the majesty of the nusachot that are used on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, especially that on Rosh Hashanah Eve. That sounds very majestic, like the calling the king to presence. Years ago, my dear friend and teacher, Rabbi David Schneier, shared with me that this is like a soul breath that we take, opening ourselves up to the season that is Yamim Noraim. His second reason for shofar, because the day of New Year is the first of the 10 days of repentance, the shofar is sounded on it to announce to us as one warns and says, whoever wants to repent, let him repent, and if he does not, let him reproach himself. Thus do the kings. First, they warn the people of their decrees. Then, if one violates a decree after the warning, His excuse is not accepted. No way, Jose. Third one, to remind us of Mount Sinai. As it is said, the blare of the horn grew louder and louder. And by the way, this pasuk, this line of Torah appears in the Shofar section of Musaf of Yom Kippur of Rosh Hashanah. That will not be part of our Moshe gathering because it's a lot of liturgy. And that we should accept for ourselves the covenant that our ancestors accepted for themselves, as they said, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will obey. Number 4, to recall the day of the great judgment, to be fearful of it, as it says, the great day of the Lord is near, it hastens greatly, a day of the horn and alarm. And finally, to remind us of the resurrection of the dead and the belief in it, as it said, all ye inhabitants of the world and ye dwellers on the earth, when an ensign is lifted up on the mountain, see ye, and when the horn is blown, hear ye. Some more contemporary understandings from Rebbe Nachman Mendel Schneerson of blessed memory, Lubavitcher Rebbe. 5 reasons. The sound of the shofar is compared to that of a child crying out to his or her parent, and in turn to our crying out to God, our parent. Number 2, the use of an animal's horn reminds us that even our most hardened animal-like instincts, behemoth, are included in the service of God. So all of me, why not take all of me? Right? It's not just the parts of us that are in atzilut or nearness to divinity, but the part of us that are living out of our animal-like instincts as well. Although many ritual vessels can become tameh, ritually impure, the shofar cannot. Did you know that, Deborah Lesk?
No, I did not know that.
The shofar cannot become impure. The shofar is the device with which we express our innate connection with God. This connection can neither be severed nor sullied. It remains intact and always ready to be drawn upon. So cannot become tameh, impure. 4 out of 5, the shofar preferably has a bend in it. Somebody raise up a shofar. It preferably has a bend in it. Now that's really interesting because I thought it has to have a bend in it. Maybe I'll go and run and get my very long shofar. And I believe it's from an ibex, if I'm not mistaken, which is very, very different from the bent ones. But it symbolizes our willingness to bend our will to that of divinity. I'm going to add to that to bring our humility to all that we are praying for on these days. So like a bent person, right? And like we bend over for Aleinu, it's the same shape. The mitzvah of shofar is only fulfilled when it is blown with the intent of connecting to godliness. So in other words, if you blow it and you don't have the right kavanah, it's kind of like, what's the expression, a mitzvah batala. It's like, it's something that is done and they can throw it away. It's like a wasted opportunity to do a mitzvah. And then he says the same is true of all mitzvot. They are not simply tasks to be blindly carried out, but rather spiritual tools to connect with God in a meaningful way. And my friends, I will be returning at the end of our session. Look, we have more people, Gail and Michael, otherwise known as Moshe, and Carol Ann, Elka, and Judy Rakusin. Welcome to everyone. I'll be returning at the end to provide a bookend to this teaching. But without ado, please welcome the other Marc's brother, Marc Kronisch.
Malkeinu, Chanenu va'anenu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu va'anenu, Ki ein banu masim. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in and out. I asked everybody to bring paper and pencil tonight. So at the top of your page, please write the 3 words, malchut. You can spell phonetically if you need to. Shenicha, well, right in between leadership and Shekhinah.
So, Mark, the 3 words are Malchut, leadership, and Shekhinah.
Yep. And just put those aside for now because I'm going to tell us a story. And this is a special story told by Rebbe Nachman of Bratslav. Now, this isn't just going to be an ordinary story because I've edited and taken some creative license to shorten some sections and add a few sections and make it special for Rosh Hashanah and the topic of the shofar. Now, after the story, we're going to do a little ritual exercise for Elul. Well, you'll need your paper and your pencil. You already have 3 words on there. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at a number of our character traits and write down just one thing where we missed the mark this year, or just one way we can improve that character trait. Now, as we'll see before, I'm going to use the words character trait synonymously with middot and with sefirot. We'll get to that after the story. Now, what we're going to do is after the class tonight, since you only wrote one thing on your paper for each of those characteristics, these are some traits that we can all do better, and they're all part of our inner work. And so it would be nice if you use this as a tool. You don't have to. This is an invitation where you can, for the rest of the month of Elul, fill in some more of those where you missed the mark in that particular trait. And then on Rosh Hashanah, you'll be sort of working on contemplation of the things that you wrote. You can even take your pad to tashlich, and for every one of those where you missed the mark, throw a piece of bread in the water. And then for the next 10 days after that, use some of this for yourself, where you can go back and look, oh, I missed the mark there. This is where I can improve in my life. Bring it to Yom Kippur. And when we beat our hearts, you can ask for forgiveness. That's what this time of the year is all about. Asking for forgiveness and turning so that the next year, this coming year, we do better. We can take care of ourselves. We can do tikkun olam, tikkun neshama, being wonderful and loving the stranger and our neighbors. So, as every good story starts, once upon a time, there was a kingdom that was overrun by evil. The Yetzer Hara took over, and people were seized with fear and with dread, and they all fled for their lives. They went on foot into the forest, to the thick and terrible forest, and 2 children from the village got lost, a little boy and a little girl, maybe 4 to 5 years old. Now, they were very hungry and scared, and they began to cry and shout, "Food! Food!" And while they cried, there came along a beggar carrying a satchel full of bread. The beggar fed the children. He asked them, "How'd you get here? Where are you from?" The children didn't know. When it was time for the man to leave, they asked him if they can go with them. And the beggar said no. Finally, the children realized that the beggar was blind, and it was probably a good idea that they didn't go with them. So they stayed, and the man blessed them, saying that they should grow old and be like him. So he gave them more bread to eat, and off he went. So the children understood that God, praise be Yah, had taken pity on them and had sent them this blind beggar so they could stay alive in the forest. Next morning, the children wake up, and again, they're hungry, they're scared, they're crying, food, food. Immediately, another beggar appears. This beggar was deaf, but he also gave the children bread. Now, this went on for 7 days. Each day, a new beggar appeared and fed the children. The next beggar stuttered. The beggar after that had a humpback. The one after that had no hands. And the one after that had no feet. And each time they came and they fed the children. But on the 8th day, no beggar came. And the children had to take care of themselves. So they walked and they walked till they found a road. They followed the road that went to this village. They went to some of the people in the village, and they found a house. They went up to the house. The people took pity on them. They gave them something to eat, and they repeated this day after day, each day going to a different house and receiving something to eat. Now, there were many other beggars in the town. Eventually, the children grew older. They became part of the community of beggars in this village, and they traveled with the others from town to town, relying on the piety of the villagers to feed them, and they became well known. In fact, they became known as the children who got lost in the forest. So after many years, it was decided that they should get married. So during a great fair in the town, all the beggars in the village came to celebrate the wedding. And just so happened that in the king's court, they were going to honor the king because it was his birthday. So for the wedding meal, the beggars went out and they collected food. And in the middle of all the celebration happiness, the bride and the groom, they remembered those 7 beggars from the forest and how they wished that the 7 beggars would come and celebrate with them. So, one by one, the beggars came, each one saying, "Behold, here I am. You see, I came to you on the day of your wedding, and I bring you the gift that you should be like me. There in the forest, I blessed you with this blessing, and now I'm giving it to you as a gift for your wedding. You should live long, just as I." So each beggar came and told an amazing story. So, for the sake of time, I'm going to be skipping a few of the beggars' stories because each one has a story. And I urge everyone to sometime read the whole parable from Rebbe Nachman. So we're going to focus on the 6th beggar. So today, the 6th beggar tells us an amazing story about the Sefirot and the power of the sounds of the Shofar. Spoiler alert, Rebbe Nachman says there is not one word in this story that does not have some special meaning. The story is filled with allegory, metaphor, and mystical concepts and significance. The real spoiler alert is that Rebbe Nachman never tells the end of the story. The 7th beggar, the one with no legs, never comes. And he says that we are not worthy to hear the end of the story and what happens with the seventh beggar until the Messiah comes. So, back to our story. On the sixth day, amidst all the happiness, the young couple remembered the beggar with no hands, and he appears, and he says, "Do you believe me to be a handicapped man with no hands? I am not all handicapped, and I have a great strength in my hands. It's just that I choose not to use the strength in my hands in this world. I need them for something else. And I have to prove the proof of this from the palace known as the Water Palace." Ooh, the Water Palace. So once upon a time, a certain group of men gathered, each one boasting the strength in his hands. One said that he shot an arrow and can retrieve it with the strength in his hands. And then I asked him, "Is every arrow dipped in a special poison?" He says, "There are 10 kinds of poison. And even after it reaches the target, I can remove it with my bare hands." Wow. Another man boasted that he had such strength in his hands that he, in fact, is giving, that his receiving is giving. Still another boasted his impartial wisdom, and another beggar finally said, "If you cannot really heal the princess because there are 10 of those arrows and you can only get one." So finally, I answered that none of you could heal the princess because you only have one and there are 10. So now comes the story. One night, the king had a dream in which the princess rose up against him and killed him. The king awoke from his deep sleep, and his mind was very unsettled. He immediately calls the wise men to interpret the dream. What should be done? Should she be killed? He was depressed, and so he ordered that they should shoot her with the arrows. One of the men said, "No, he could heal the princess with the sound of his shofar." And the Rebbe says, "You can't heal the princess either, because only the 10 sounds of the shofar can heal the princess." So the king sent the messengers to find her, and they saw her running into the water palace. The 10 walls surround the palace, one in front of the other, and they're all made of water. The bridge that leads to the palace is made of water. Within the palace, there's a courtyard, and they too are made of water. No living creature could get into the palace without drowning. The princess saw the king and his men as they came near, and she said to herself, "I'm going to run into the palace. It's better that I drown than fall into their hands." As soon as the king saw that the princess was fleeing into the water, he told his men to dip the arrows in the 10 poisons and shoot her. Now, the beggar with no hands continues, "I'm the doctor who can be chosen to heal the princess, because I have my hands in all 10s of the charity and all 10 of the walls of the palace. And I can take all 10 of arrows out of her body, and I can heal her with the sounds of the shofar. Now, listen carefully. The Rebbe says that the princess can only be healed through the sounds. The Zohar says that there are 10 sounds in the Psalms of David. These 10 sounds are alluded to in the blowing of the shofar, beginning the 10 days of repentance. Sound is the basis of repentance. And since sound leads to song, song leads to joy, and joy brings one from the side of guilt to the side of merit. It is only the sixth beggar who knows all types of the 10 sounds of the shofar that can revive the princess. Now, as I mentioned, the Rebbe doesn't finish the story. Now I'm going to fast forward to the exercise that we're going to do. And I want us to turn inward and work on the sefirot, or the 10 attributes that are all necessary for the healing. In this case, each of those characters represents something a lot deeper, and that's for you to contemplate at another time. So I'd like everybody to take out their sheets of paper. And Mark, would you please put up that screen share? Now notice on the where it says sefirot, underneath it says Malchut Shekhinah under middot. It has the word leadership. So we're going to listen to the sounds of the shofar. I put at the top some sounds, some vibrations that are within each and every one of these sefirot. Now, Rabbi Mark should recognize these because he brought these out at one of our meditations on a Wednesday at noon, and we chanted some of these sounds. The sounds and the sounds of creation have real power in them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to blow the shofar, and we're going to hear it as a wake-up call to go inward, to contemplate, and to listen to the sound, and then write on our paper, either, you can choose either the word Malchut, Shekhinah, or leadership. And write down one way that you missed the mark in relation to leadership, or the Shekhinah, or if you know the Kabbalistic tree of life, Malchut. What does that mean? What does that sefirot mean? We'll just take a few minutes, and then we'll move on to the next, and then we'll go through the list. And notice that we're going higher and higher in the tree of life. In this case, at the top of the list is the world of Asiya, and then it is actually going the opposite direction, but that's just how I wrote it on the paper. So we're going from this plane of existence in Asiya up to the world of Atzilut. Deborah, you have a question?
Yes. Is the sound related to the words?
I would say that they're not related to the word. However, in every one of those sefirot, some of those sounds appear. So this text in the Zohar, this comes from Kabbalah, mysticism, and so we know that the method of creation is vibration, sound. So we'll see that Malchut. So there's two of those sounds in there, the ah, the ooh. See what I'm saying? So as we go through, you'll be able to hear those sounds within the sefirot. So I'll blow the shofar, take a moment, and then write down your thought. I'm getting there. If I go too fast, just tell me to slow down, or I'll move on so we can get through the whole list and then have time to maybe discuss a little bit about what we shared, and then Rabbi Mark has a few more things to share. Elaine, you have a question?
I do. So we're listening to the sound of the shofar and looking for the I, O, I, E, A, U in the words on the page.
That's sort of incidental. I was just bringing that to the attention that in the sound of the shofar in our story, there are 10 different sounds of the shofar that are required to heal the princess. In other words, the wholeness is necessary for the true healing. So,
right. I don't know what we're supposed to do when we hear the sound.
well, that is actually a good question. I don't think I was clear about that. So, the sound of the shofar is an alarm. It's the time of the year to wake up. It's the new year. It's a time of the year where we're going to start going inwards. We're going to be looking at ourselves. We're going to spend the whole month reflecting on the past year and where we made mistakes, where we need to ask for forgiveness, where can we turn towards God. And the sound of the shofar is the blast of urgency that we need to do this. And as our tradition says, we go to Yom Kippur, we ask God for who is going to live for this year, who is going to die for this year. And in our tradition, it's a time of the year to really go inward. What I'm providing here is a little bit of outline to help with that process, to break down some of the things that we all work on. And as you'll see, and those of you who are more literate in Kabbalah, you know what all of these sefirot mean to you. So you can choose from either the list to write on your paper and go deep. But we're only going to do one for each category. Elaine, I hope I answered your question.
Not fully, and I'll ride along and be with the sounds.
Okay. So if the sound of my shofar is a little annoying, because I'm blowing it a little bit crazy, that's a good thing, because it should sound annoying enough to wake up and do some work. So
If I may, Mark,
yes.
I'm going to try to understand out loud what you are inviting us into, and you tell me whether or not this answers your question, Helene, and
Okay.
anyone else who might be a little confused. I think to simplify things, I believe what you're asking us is to listen to the shofar, to allow the shofar to awaken in us a a, a realization of how in this particular midah of leadership we may have missed the mark this past year in um, in fully being serving in that role in however we understand it. And then you're going to blow shofar maybe again, and we're going to do the
Yes.
same thing on nurturing. Have we been nurturing this past year? Where have we fallen short of our the vision of ourselves and that God has of us as a nurturing person? And
Exactly.
okay, so I think that's it. That we listen to the shofar for each of these middot. The first one being leadership, and understand leadership however you want to understand leadership. It might be within your family, it might be within your community, it might be within your volunteer work or your or your day-to-day work. However you understand it, that's what it is.
And in that category, if you choose not to use that word leadership, write down Shekhinah, the feminine presence of God. Where have you missed the mark in that relation? So I'm giving you 3 options for the first one. All right.
Thank you.
Let's
Carol
move
Ann,
on
are you
to,
waving your hand?
is there another hand?
You're muted, Carol Ann. Carol,
What is HaKadosh Baruch Hu at the end
Oh,
of?
I'll get to that when we get to the last
Oh,
one.
Okay.
okay, we all good? Any
So
other questions? It's certainly understandable for any of us to not quite understand what Marcus, he's using language that not all of us are familiar with. And so let go of the the o, the o, a, e, a, o.
Mm.
That's we're not
Yeah,
working with that right now.
thank you for the clarification. Although symbolically, I am blowing the shofar with different of the 10 different sounds, one for each of those 10 categories. But that's neither here nor there. Let's get back to the exercise. So right on the top of your paper, sewed. Some of us know that means foundation, bonding, and there's other things, but just write down yesod or the word nurturing. The word nurturing, write that on the paper. And then I'm going to blow the shofar and make a sound, and it's going to shake you up a little bit and help you conjure up one way that you can improve in that category, or one way that you might have messed up, missed the mark in that category. So finish that one up. Again, this is just the exercise, and if you really want to fill in the blanks, if you didn't finish this one or there's more thoughts, then the invitation is to take it home and work with it. So the next one is netzach, typically defined as endurance, but we're going to write netzach and the word patience. And again, choose from one or the other. Pick something when you hear the call of the shofar and write down where you missed the mark. Your answers for each are long. Just take some shorthand and just bookmark it in your mind to complete it later. Again, this is just a teaching exercise so that you can use these to categorize some of what you're working on in the month of Elul. Sometimes it's so much that this is just one system of breaking it down a little. So next, hod, and the middot is humility. So let's listen to the shofar, go inward, contemplate a little, and see what you come up with. Next, the Sefirot of Tiferet. It's our heart space, the center of beauty and balance. And the middot is compassion. Where have you might have fallen short in compassion? Gevurah, sometimes defined as justice, discipline. We're going to write down boundaries, meaning your personal boundaries, your inner boundaries. Chesed, loving kindness. Binah, understanding. And we're going to use the word gratitude. Chachma, wisdom. And the word is silence. Ironically, Rabbi Marc talked about silence this afternoon, called the silence to open up to the world of thought. Keter, crown. I put Kadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Blessed Holy One, just to illustrate that I've reversed this. Usually the Shekhinah is written at the bottom, and at the top above Keter is the Holy Blessed One. So, Carol Ann, I hope that clarifies that for you. So the word is awe. So, Mark, could you please take down the screen share and let's go back to the gallery view so we can all see each other? First of all, I'd like to apologize. I messed up my story, and I'll just have to own it. I left out a very important piece, and then I went along, and then it wouldn't have made any sense at all unless I went back. And so I'm going to ask us all when we have a time, read the Seven Beggars by Rebbe Nachman of Bratslav, and I'd really like to have a conversation about some of the hidden meanings that the Zohar points out. It's a very, very wonderful story. So would anybody like to share anything about this process or something specifically that stuck out for them? Did it work? Did it not? I was trying to accomplish two things. One, to give a little more meaning to when we hear the shofar, to show how the sound mystically is related to creation, related to the 10 sefirot, which are the so-called emanations of the attributes, the characteristics of God and of humanity, as we are made in God's image. And the second was to give a little bit introductory to the middot, and so that these things are not just we could use them in a real sense here. So I was trying to give a little template to help us. Some of us have an Elul practice that is very deep, and some people not so deep, and this might give a little more guidance. Any comments? Elizabeth.
So thank you, Mark. It was very interesting for me to do it with the in the way once we got the hang of it that you guided, because I've never gone through in listening to the shofar, and what actually came out was a sense of the linkage of the whole tree within me, and how, you know, one impediment linked to the other, linked right through. You know, it was one pattern that strung through different dimensions of life.
Wow, Elizabeth, that is beautiful, and that was exactly what the intention was. Thank you. Michael, then Mel.
I was initially befuddled, having blown shofar at our synagogue as a child, at the Hillel at the University of Delaware, when I helped an emeritus rabbi do the service. So I was used to the Teruah, Tekiah, and all of those. And so I guess the first thing I heard was when a young child would take my shofar and try to blow it, and it just was, you know, a cacophony of noise that they were actually, you know, upset about. And I was just sort of trying to, how do I link what we're going to hear in the performance of the service and what you were trying to show us? Because I have to give you enough credit to think you could do those standard ones if you tried, you know, that you weren't struggling to play. And so that's where I started with the first thing, with my long relationship with the shofar.
Thank you, Michael. You know, you brought something up that I want to share. This is from a parable by Rev Yehuda Amatal of Yeshivat Har Etzion. He says, not everybody knows how to read from the Siddur. Prayers don't strike spiritual chords with everybody. So he says a shofar offers another way of communicating with God. When we hear this shofar, not words, but emotion becomes the tools at which we can contact God. We open our hearts, we cry out, we send our deepest feelings soaring on the sounds of the shofar. For some, he says it's a way that can best communicate with God. It's their way of making conversation with their maker on Rosh Hashanah. I just thought that was just a beautiful thought. Mel.
Yeah, hi. I hope I don't disrupt the spiritual focus of the shofar, but in 1990, I was on assignment in Ghana and lived in a Ghanaian neighborhood, Osu, which was dominated by the Twi tribe. So I was just walking around and started talking to people in English. And I was invited into this compound, and there was a Ghanaian priest, and he was sprinkling local, it's an alcoholic drink made from palm wine, but it's fermented. So he was making the compound holy by sprinkling the ot, which was the drink, on the walls. And then we sat around in a circle with the shofar. Although they didn't call it that, it was just a ram's horn. So they passed it around and it came to me. Well, several things. At the Hebrew Academy, we practiced blowing the shofar, and I played trumpet for 3 years in the marching band of my high school. So when they handed it to me, I'm sure their expectation was this white guy is not going to do very well. Anyway, I remembered my brochure for the shofar, and I blew it louder and better than any of them. And they were all laughing and smiling and congratulated me. I've never pursued how widespread a ram's horn or shofar is amongst many cultures in the world, but that was my experience in Ghana of blowing a shofar. And I don't know what the local holiday was. I've not had that much interest in it, although after tonight I will. So that's my little anecdote about the shofar in West Africa. Done.
So Mel, you reminded me of something. I think there's some Native American tribes that instead of a talking stick, they pass the shofar around the sweat lodge. It's a joke.
If it's a sweat lodge, from what I know, it might be a pipe to smoke, not a shofar to blow.
Whatever works.
Right.
Anybody else have a comment? I think we lost Rabbi Mark. Oh, there he is. Mark, you have some wisdom for us?
Oh, great Max brother. Oh, do I have wisdom to share? It strikes me as the best practice to make use of what we've experienced tonight, what I've experienced tonight, is to, when I hear the shofar, to allow these hyperlinks to open. In other words, to allow the shofar call to remind me of all that I've been working on and all the ways in which I want to be more awake. And I just want to share one thing with you that I wrote, and maybe it'll give you all courage, inspiration, maybe to share something on the in the middot of nurturing. I wrote down in my nurturing my relationship with my daughter, who's 26, I didn't call her enough on the phone. And I want to be more generous with reaching out to her. So I recognize that this is something that I certainly can improve in my life, and will improve my relationship with my daughter and create the connections that we all yearn for. So that very well could be, when I hear shofar on Rosh Hashanah, a file that opens and awakens me or reawakens me to the work that I'm doing now in Elul. Libarti.
Shabati.
Jennifer?
Get unmuted. I noticed in myself how many of these middot for me were in conflict with each other. And how, for example, going across the continuum from Hesed to Gvura, I did not find that there was resolution in my shortcomings in Tiferet, just to use one continuum. And so there's that was very enlightening for me, because it was one of those aha moments. So I do thank you so much for presenting this in a linear fashion, because I'm accustomed to going across and saying, well, yes, this balances this and this will be fine. And guess what? It wasn't. So Dibarti.
Shabati. You know, I've been studying this year Musar and Kabbalah with two different rabbis. And in our Musar class, I've been coming in and integrating the mystical with the Musar practice. And so, and this was an exercise that I put together for that class as sort of a culmination of what we've been working on, seeing the relationship between the personal inner work and then the macrocosm of our concept of God. And so I thank you for your comment. I like how that was, the balancing of in the Teferet, the balance point. It's beautiful. If you found this particular practice useful, go online and there's this is from the Musar Institute. It's a different listing of middot. Some of them have been written extensively about, and some of them, I don't think I've ever seen two lists of the middot within Musar that are the same. Elaine?
So I found the practice or the opportunity of hearing something and internalizing the sound and then seeing what it evokes was very interesting. And what I wrote down for compassion was my anger stops me from having compassion. And if you had asked me what stops me from having compassion, I don't think I would have named anger. So the fact that those two are now connected, so I'm thinking, if I notice myself not having compassion in a moment, I can ask myself, what am I pissed about? And I'd probably get some really interesting information from that and an opportunity to grow from it. So thank you.
Thank you. Carol Ann.
I started to do nurturing and patience, and unfortunately I have a plumbing issue, so I had to go deal with my helper. But I found it to be very constructive, and I actually had a similar experience with nurturing. I immediately thought about my son Brian, who is unfortunately suffering from cancer. And I didn't know this for a bit. I just found out last Thursday. So I'm clearly going to be doing more nurturing and have already started. And my grandson too, I've made an effort, and I'm planning to do more to do that. So it really helped me examine behavior, character. But I must have missed something with what Helene said. Where would the anger have come up? Would it have been on that? I didn't see it on the list. I don't know how you made that connection. Would you be willing to tell us, or
Sure.
Can you explain it? Can you explain?
Mark said what pairing we were doing.
Oh,
to listen to the sound and then write. So for Teferet and compassion, what I wrote was, my anger stops me from having compassion.
it came up.
So more to be revealed.
Got it.
What I'd like to share is it was only a few days ago that I really thought up this particular exercise. I was going to be using a different template until I put this all together. The other template was, I asked people to draw 4 sections on a piece of paper. In one section, write where I missed the mark with myself. And then the other section, where I missed the mark with others. Third section, where I missed the mark in nature. And the fourth, where I missed the mark with God. And then I was going to blow the shofar and have us work on that template. And then I thought of using the middot. So there's another bit of tool that you can use if you are looking for a way to guide you through this process during this month. Well, Mark, if you have no other things, or do you? If no other comments, then if you could put up that other screen share. Yeah, so well, I guess the way we'll do it is I'll sing, and if you feel motivated and would like to sing along at home with me, that would be great. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. I want to wish everybody a wonderful rest of Elul, that we come together at Rosh Hashanah, open our hearts, ask for forgiveness, see if we could do tshuva and start a new year. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you, Mark. Yesh koach, or as they say in the yeshivas, kach, kach.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So I would like to end with a story, which I'm going to screen share with you because it is in the mock store that I created for this year. If it did appear in Monday's email, if you want to hold off till this Friday's email, it'll be even a new improved one because I worked on it a little bit more. The content is the same, however, for the most part. So this evening, one thing that Mark did not mention is that there are balei tikiya. That means the person, a bal tikiya, is a person who is the master of the shofar. That's the person who is going to be blowing shofar, right? This person, if he or she has done their job, has studied on the secrets of the shofar sounds. As in the story of the 7 beggars, is revealed that the sounds of the shofar have healing powers, right? If we're open to them. These are the kinds of esoteric teachings that a person who is going to be blowing and calling shofar should know. So this brings all of the intention to that moment, including all the secrets. So before we end with the story, which I said I'm going to screen share, just a bissel Torah from this week's Parsha Nitzavim, which says that some things are meant to be revealed, miglot, and some things are nistarot, before us. In other words, some things remain hidden and some things are revealed. That said, there are corresponding parallel teachings say that the things that are hidden are all accessible in the silence that we open ourselves up to receiving chokhmah, receiving wisdom. And of course, chokhmah, divide the word up, it means the koachma, the strength of what, right? The strength of that which cannot be named, okay? So there are a lot of very practical ways to listen to shofar, as you know, if you happen to be going to synagogue this year, watch the kids, because that's where the awe is really going to be expressed, all right? Or watch the parents watching the kids. And the naches and the ksharim, the connections that are being made right there in front of you from parent to child. Once, the Baal Shem Tov commanded Rabbi Zev Kitzis to learn the secret meanings behind the blasts of the ram's horn, because Rabbi Zev was to be his caller on Rosh Hashanah. So Rabbi Zev learned the secrets, the meanings, and wrote them down on a little slip of paper, a petek, to look at during the services. So he laid the paper into his breast pocket, so he knew where they were. And his plan was, of course, to take them with him so he can look at them on Rosh Hashanah. But when the time came for blowing the shofar, he searched everywhere. The slip of paper, it must have dropped out of his shirt. It was gone. And he didn't know what meanings to concentrate on were. He was really, really upset. He was very sad. He was brokenhearted, in fact. He started weeping right there on the bima, on the stage, that he was standing right next to the Baal Shem Tov, the master of the good name. He wept bitter tears, and he called out the blasts of the ram's horn without concentrating on the secret meetings, because he didn't have them with him. The Baal Shem Tov knew what was going on. And afterward, the Baal Shem Tov said to him, "In the palace of the king, there are many rooms and many apartments, and there are different keys for every lock. But the master key that opens all of those rooms is the axe, with which it is possible to open all the locks on all the gates." And so he shared, so it is with the shofar, my holy friend. The secret meanings are the keys, and every gate has its own meaning, but the master key is the broken heart. When a person truthfully breaks his heart before the divine, then they can enter into all the gates of the rooms of the Holy Blessed One. So we did a lot of work tonight. I wrote down a lot of things. I might forget them all, right? But I know I'm coming to that moment with the master key. And if I allow all of those hyperlinks to open, I'm not going to have any choice but my heart to explode, because that's what happens when we are most awake. Oh, all the things I've missed. I wasn't really awake until this moment. So may we all be blessed on this Wednesday night before Rosh Hashanah, with the open heart as we listen and hear the sound of the shofar. And that open heart lead us to gates that need to open for us to grow, be happy, find fulfillment and meaning in our lives in the year ahead. May we all be blessed such.